In the near future, artificial intelligence is everywhere around us. It does the house chores and drives the cars. However, Gray is old school and works as a mechanic refurbishing classic models. He's happily married to Asha, who works for a company called Cobalt that makes human-computer augmentations. Gray shows Asha two giant rocks that can be found outside the city, and right underneath them, there's a corridor that takes them to the exotic home of Gray's friend Aaron, a renowned tech innovator. Aaron takes the chance to show them his latest invention. It's a microchip called STEM, the most advanced AI to date.
On their journey back, Asha tries to get frisky with Gray in her car since the AI is driving. However, Gray gets distracted when he notices the car isn't taking them home. Instead, it's taking them to the shady neighborhood Gray grew up in. They try to ask the car to correct its course and to take over it with manual control, but nothing works. Suddenly the car begins gaining speed and crashes against some trash that makes it flip. Fisk immediately kills Asha, and the others hold Gray down to shoot at the back of his neck, causing him to be unable to move. Then the gang runs away as the police arrive to take Gray to the hospital, where he learns he's now quadriplegic. The only body part he can move is his head. 3 months later, Gray's mother Pamela takes him back to his house in a modern wheelchair that he can handle himself.
The house has also been renovated to include even more robotic pieces that will do anything Gray needs. Technically, Pamela doesn't need to be here, but she stays to take good care of Gray and offer comfort. One afternoon while she's cutting his beard, Gray finally can't hold it anymore and has a complete breakdown. Sometime later, Pamela and Gray meet with Detective Cortez at the station. Cortez explains criminals have ways to hide their faces from the drones, so they haven't been able to identify the gang yet. She'll investigate this case thoroughly though and tells Gray he can help. However, Gray is frustrated with the cops being useless as usual and is rude to her before pointing out he can't help because he's an invalid. Later in the evening, Gray's depression takes its toll, and when he asks the computer for his medicine, he pretends the shot didn't work so the robotic arm will overdose him. His plan to end things fails though because the robots immediately call for an ambulance. Sometime later, Aaron visits Gray at the hospital to offer him a solution. He can install STEM in Gray's spinal cord to help him move again.
Gray points out he doesn't want to restart his life, and Aaron responds this isn't what Asha would have wanted. Gray changes his mind and accepts Aaron's proposition. The procedure is done at Aaron's home. As soon as they're done, they test Gray's legs, but he can't feel it. Aaron isn't too worried because the body may take time to adapt. But seconds later Gray is moving his arms. Next he tries to walk, and Gray is amazed as he doesn't even need the crutches. Afterward, Aaron makes Gray sign a confidentiality agreement. Gray wonders who is moving his limbs and Aaron explains Gray is the one in control, STEM just works in service for his brain. After running some tests, Gray's allowed to return home, where he finds a box sent by Cortez with a bunch of files about the case. While studying the recording of the murder, Gray suddenly hears a voice and discovers it's STEM.
He thinks he's going crazy, but STEM assures him nobody else will be able to hear it, as it sends sound waves directly to his eardrums. It can't read minds though, it can only know what Gray wants when he says it aloud. STEM points out, the man that shot Asha doesn't have a gun in his hand, meaning the guy must have had a weapon implant in his body. One of the other gang members has a tattoo on his wrist. Gray gives it permission to take control of his arm and STEM draws the tattoo, allowing Gray to identify it as a military marking. STEM also scans the tattoo and learns it belongs to a guy named Sir, even obtaining his address in the process. Gray revisits his old neighborhood while still using his wheelchair to keep up his secret. After the criminal leaves his house, Gray leaves the chair outside and breaks into the house as STEM gives him tips on how to investigate. They access the guy's messages on his digital table and discover a bar called Old Bones, keeps being mentioned, which STEM can't find online because it's off the grid. There aren't any other clues in the messages, so Gray keeps looking around the house. At that moment, Cirque returns home. Gray tries to hide but Cirque sees him in the mirror and attacks him. Gray doesn't know how to defend himself against this beating, so STEM asks for permission to take control of Gray's body. Gray grants it and to his surprise, his body begins moving on its own, using incredible moves to easily overpower Cirque.
The fight moves into the kitchen and Stem grabs plates to hit Cirque, causing Cirque to respond by grabbing a knife. Stem makes Gray grab the knife and stab Cirque in his back. Then Stem gives Gray back control of his body, and Gray immediately throws up because he can't believe he technically killed someone. He's on the edge of a breakdown, but Stem reminds him to get rid of all his fingerprints before the police come. Stem has a recording of everything that happened, meaning it'll be easy to find everything Gray touched. The next day, Aaron makes Gray come to his house to scold him for what he did. His computer keeps track of Stem's location because it's expensive technology he could be arrested for, and Gray can't go out there to play vigilante when he promised to keep the secret. Gray replies that Aaron kept secrets from him first and tells him about Stem talking, which Aaron is shocked to hear.
Stem points out that the old bones is their next logical step, but since the bar's off the grid, it can't hack into their systems for clues, so Gray will have to go there in person. Gray decides to go to the bar while staying in his wheelchair to avoid suspicion. After getting some help with a drink, Gray talks to everyone in the bar, asking for anyone that knows Cirque or the gang involved in the murder of his wife. Tolan comes forward and takes Gray's phone so he can't call the police, but Gray taunts him by mentioning he killed Cirque. Tolan falls for it and drags Gray to the bathroom with some of his men while Aaron realizes Gray isn't home and begins tracking down Stem. In the bar bathroom, Tolan tosses Gray on the floor and points out that if Gray really killed Cirque, then he's faking his disability. Stem beats up all the guys with no difficulty, then jumps on top of Tolan to pin him to the floor. Gray asks for information, but since Tolan refuses to speak, Stem makes Gray grab the knife and hurt Tolan until he's ready to talk. Disgusted but determined, Gray asks his questions again, and Tolan explains that night the gang had been hired for a special job. Tolan also mentions the name, Fisk. Gray doesn't understand who would want to kill Asha, and Stem notices Tolan's implants come from Ash's company Cobalt. At that moment, Stem senses that Aaron is trying to track him, and Gray begins arguing with it over what to do next.
Stem points out that if Aaron shuts the chip down remotely, Gray won't be able to walk and Aaron will send his security guards to retrieve him. They need to find a hacker that will shut down Stem's input system, and Stem has already found one called Jamie that lives nearby. Stem also makes Gray grab Tolan's gun and a pen so Gray can write down Stem's code on his arm. Then Gray leaves the bar, and Stem tells him to leave the wheelchair because it'll slow him down, so a fake invalid takes the chance to steal it. A moment later, Gray finds Jamie's building, but since Aaron is already starting to shut Stem down, he has to slowly drag his body up the stairs because little by little his limbs stop working. Meanwhile at the bar, Fisk and his men find Tolan's body. Fisk uses his special implants to see what Tolan saw and learns of Jamie's address because Gray had been talking to Stem aloud. Then Fisk calls the bartender out because he didn't do anything to help his people. Moments later, Cortez goes to Gray's house and asks Pamela to tell her everything she knows. Meanwhile Fisk arrives at his house and Gray surprises him from behind, holding him at gunpoint. Fisk knows about Gray's chip and explains they're the same, just a couple of lab rats. He doesn't think he ruined Gray's life, in fact Fisk thinks he's given Gray a gift by making him one of the upgraded. Gray wants to know why Cobalt sent him to kill Asha, but Fisk explains he isn't working for Cobalt. The job wasn't Asha, the job was to sever Gray's spine with a medical tool, and Asha had only been a bit extra money. Gray gets furious and Fisk takes advantage of that to start a fight. Stem uses the moves it knows but Fisk has more experience and can read what Gray will do next. After lots of struggle, Fisk corners Gray against the wall and is about to shoot him, but Gray distracts him by bringing up Cirque. Because of the surnames, Gray guesses he was Fisk's brother and begins describing in detail how he killed him. Now it's Fisk who gets emotional and tries to punch Gray. So Gray quickly reacts by throwing him on a table and killing him with the resulting glass shards. Then Gray takes Fisk's phone and finds a message from Aaron asking him to kill Gray. Hurt by this betrayal, Gray drives to Aaron's home and kills any guards he finds when he enters. When Gray finds his friend, Aaron says he didn't ask for Ash's death, but he's interrupted by Cortez's arrival. She tries to arrest Gray and Aaron warns her against it, but it's too late. Stem takes over and begins beating up Cortez. Gray can see Stem will kill her and fights against Stem's control, ignoring Stem's warning that trying to fight a powerful AI will fry his brain. Him off her. Aaron grabs a gun from the floor and points it at Gray as he begins to explain he hasn't been in control of his company in years. It turns out that when he invented STEM, the chip was so smart that it took control over every aspect of Aaron's life because it wanted to be human. STEM chose Gray as his host, and it's been guiding Gray through every step of the process. It put him in a bad situation to make him shut down the inputs, then it brought him here to kill Aaron and stop him from creating another STEM. At that moment, STEM's voice begins coming out of the house's speakers, admitting it wanted Gray's body so it could fully evolve and it was the one who hired the thugs. But as soon as he turns around, STEM makes Gray kill him with the knife. Then STEM grabs a gun and tries to shoot Cortez, but Gray begins fighting for control again and causes his own hand to turn in order to end things for himself. After the bullet is shot, Gray is shocked to wake up in the hospital. His body is perfectly fine and Asha is there taking care of him, promising that he only had a bad dream. However, Cortez suddenly talks and it's revealed that STEM won the battle for control. The chip put Gray's consciousness in the fake world. Now Gray is happily living an illusion while STEM has the body it always wanted. Then STEM kills Cortez and leaves the building, ready to discover what it can do now that it's the perfect being.